everyone, welcome back to the Eldenwood Craft YouTube channel. Today is Sunday the 12th of March. My name's Emma and I'm here to chat with you about all the things I've been making over the last couple of weeks. As always, all the information that you need is in the information box underneath the video, and I'll also be putting clicky links to the patterns and anything that I talk about that I reasonably can. I'll be popping on a post on my website, which is www.eldenwoodcraft.com, probably a few days after this is uploaded, which should be tomorrow, Monday, or today for you if you're watching today. Thank you for all your comments on my last video. I really enjoy reading about what you're working on as you watch. I get a lot of inspiration, lots of the patterns I haven't heard of before, so I hop on over and have a look and to see what they are, and I have a list now of things that I'd like to make, or an even longer list of things that I'd like to make. Okay, so in today's episode I've got 4 projects to talk to you about, some plans, what else? A little bit of book chat, very little bit of shop update news, and that's probably it. So I'm going to get stuck right in with the projects that I said I was going to be focusing on for the 2 weeks after I recorded. So the first pattern that I've been working on is the Litmus Cowl by Jude of Stranded Dye Works. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and it's just a very simple tubular cowl that you wrap a couple of times round your neck. It's a recipe rather than a detailed pattern, but it's lovely. I really enjoy knitting it and wearing them. So the yarns that I'm using to knit with are these two gorgeous skeins of yarn from Cami Jo Knit. There's Camilla's label, and these two yarns okay, so this one is Superwash Merino Nylon, 425 meters, and it's in the colour Dolce de Leche. It's beautiful, coming up pretty. It's a bit, I suppose it's a bit grayer in real life. That looks quite bright. It's a bit duller, but a lovely colourway. And then the second one is this Njord, and this is Camilla's BFL sock base. So Superwash BFL, Blueface Leicester, 25% nylon, again 425 meters. Yeah, so those are the two yarns, and this is what they look like worked up together. Oops, lots of loose ends. They just look amazing together. And this is how much I have knit. Cast on at this end and working up at this end now. I'm a little way over halfway in terms of using up the yarn. I think there's about 40 grams each left with these two balls of yarn. Whether I'll use them all up, I'm not quite sure, but the idea of this pattern is simply that you alternate yarns every 10 rows or so. I'm doing every 10 rows. I can't quite remember what the pattern said, and you knit in that manner until you've used up all your yarn, and then you graft the two ends together and you've got a nice loop to pop round your neck. I'm really enjoying working on this. It's the sort of project that you can pick up and put down and not have to think about it, and it's always nice to have a pattern like that or a project like that on the go. Over the last couple of weeks I have knit, I don't know if you can see that, it sort of blends into the to this colour, but I popped a progress keep, or I popped a bulb ring there, and I have knit that much in a couple of weeks. It's not huge progress, but it's the sort of project that I leave lying around and pick up when I've got a few minutes spare to knit. I am using the clasp weft join method to manage my ends. I suppose you could just about carry your yarns, but I quite like having I quite like not having the two balls of yarn connected, so I'm using that method to join, so there's no weaving in of ends to do whatsoever, apart from the very first and the very last bit of yarn. In the pattern, it asks you to cast on with a provisional cast on, and then you, at the end, you pick up that provisional cast on and you graft it to the live stitches on the other end, so you've got two sets of live stitches. I have knit this is my 4th version of the Litmus Cowl, and for whatever reason, I don't know what that reason was, I didn't cast on with a provisional cast on, I just cast on with a normal cast on. So I need to give some thought about what I'm going to do with grafting. I suppose there must be a way to graft normal cast on stitches to live stitches. I mean, I suppose I could just literally pick up. Can I? If I take my live stitches from this end and just pick up a stitch, a cast on stitch, I mean, they're nicely, I'm thinking aloud here, they're nicely, I mean, they're easy to see, so I could do that. But if you know of a clever invisible grafting method that is more clever than the one I've just suggested, I'd love to know. Yeah, but no, I'm really happy with that. It's getting to the stage of the year where I will not be able to wear this because it's getting too warm. They are really lovely and cosy around your neck. So this will be a project that I will get finished over the next few weeks, and then it will get tucked away in time for the colder weather at the end of the year. Yeah, a really lovely project. Cami Jo Knits, Camilla, I've spoken about her before, but she has a really good YouTube channel which I really enjoy, one of my favourites, so I'll pop a link for that in the description box, and I'll put the details of her website in there as well. Okay, the next project that I said I would be working on was my helical knitting socks. I think in the last episode I had knit one sock, and I was part way up the leg? Can't quite remember, but anyway, I was heading towards finishing them, and I have finished them. Well done me. Here is one, and here is the other. Now I appreciate that the window that is just here is totally blowing that out, but you can see, there we go, you can see how lovely the helical knitting method works to create a pair of socks. Now, what I did, helical knitting, I'm sure most of you will know or have heard about helical knitting in terms of alternating skeins when you're using hand-dyed yarn to knit garments, and I just thought it might be interesting to see what that looked like in a pair of socks. So I picked a skein of yarn from my stash, and I chose a skein of Yantan Tetherer very deep stash yarn. I can't remember the colourway, I can't remember the base. Oops, I'm going to show you what I've got left, but the yarn is escaping. So I have got this left from 2 decent sized pairs of socks, and that equates to about 75 grams of yarn. So for a pair of socks, and I'm size 6, UK size 6, I used 25 grams of the main colour and 50 grams of a contrast colour. So the contrast I used random bits and bobs of minis, leftover yarns that I had in my minis jar. They were all sort of yellowy / creamy based. I'm not sure how well it will show up on here, but I started off with this very pale speckled yellow and striped it helically on the foot. I used a yellow part mini for the heel, and I think it's the same one for the cuff. And then I used slightly different minis on here, but I still, there's a yellow one, that's more of a grey creamy, and that's again a yellowy creamy. So I've got my book here, the socks in total weigh 72 grams. So I used 25 grams of the main skein, so whatever that is that's left, nearly 50 grams left of the minis. I did a German short row heel. Actually, let me tell you about how I constructed the sock. So I started toe up. I normally knit cuff down. I just, for a change, decided to go toe up. So I cast on probably 24 stitches, so there were 12 on each needle. Used the Judy's Magic cast on, increased for a standard wedge toe, knit the foot up to 2 inches shorter than the length of my foot, did a German short row heel, and then knit up the leg and did a 1x1 twisted rib, and then Jenny's surprisingly stretchy cast off. My one negative comment on these socks is that I'm finding the cast off edge just that little bit tight around my leg. I always knit my socks with a 60 stitch cast on, or 60 stitches around the leg, and they always fit me really nicely. With a cuff down cast on, I can't remember the name of the cast on that I use, but it's a very basic standard one. But that, I find the stretch on that is perfect. I'm finding the stretch on this is just a little bit tighter than I would like, and I just wonder if, I'd be really interested to know if any of you do knit socks toe up, whether you have a favourite cast off method that I could maybe try again, because I really enjoy knitting socks toe up. I like the fact that you don't have to cast on so many stitches for your rib, and I find, I don't know why, I think it's a mental thing, I find knitting rib at the end of a project much more engaging than knitting it at the beginning of a project. That's probably just me, I don't know. But yeah, I'd be really interested to know how you cast off your toe up socks. Maybe I just need to go up a needle size. I always use 2.25mm needles for my socks, and I usually knit them on wooden DPNs. So maybe I need to go up to 2.5mm, and that might just give that little bit of extra room. I could try that, couldn't I? Anyway, these are my socks. They're nice and ready to wear now, and it's definitely a method of knitting socks that I would try again using the helical yarn. It would be a great way to use up odds and ends of yarn that you've got lying around. I'm looking here because I have got a lovely big jar full of yarns that could make, full of minis that would make great pairs of helical knit socks. Anyway, thinking aloud there. Right, the other project that I said I would be working on over the last couple of weeks was my Ole mittens. And that's a pattern by, oh, what's her name? Suzanne Muller. The pattern is a paid for pattern. It's available on Ravelry. It's available on her website or Lovecrafts. I'm not sure, but I'll put details of where you can find it in the show notes. The yarn I use, I don't have the ends of my ball to share with you, but it was Regina by Adriaphil. And that is a DK weight yarn in 100% wool, and you get, for every 50 gram ball, you get 125 meters. In my last episode, I had knit the right hand mitten. There it is, going with my grey. Oh, I should say, I'm wearing, if you've not been here before, you will not have seen this maybe, I don't know, anyway. I'm wearing my Yume Sweater by Isabell Kraemer. It's a pattern, it's a project that I finished maybe a couple of months ago. It's knit out of drop snored, and I really like it. It's a brilliant fit. Really happy with it. I've worn it quite a lot. So yeah, so the Yume Sweater by Isabell Kraemer. Anyway, so one mitten was knit already last time, and I have finished the left hand mitten. There they are. They are a fabulous pair of mittens. I finished these in the last week. I soaked them. I didn't really block them out. I didn't think they needed it. Dealt with all the ends. There weren't many. And I wore them yesterday because it was so blooming cold out. So I wore these yesterday and they really kept my hands warm. Okay, let me tell you about them. They are a mitten that is knit in half brioche. I still don't know the difference between half brioche and full brioche, and I should do some work on that, see if I can find out. You do some half brioche around the cuff, and then the pattern changes slightly, and you knit up to the start of the thumb gusset. It has the most beautiful thumb gusset. I absolutely love that feature. And you increase for the thumb gusset, put the thumb stitches on hold, knit, 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 knit all the way up, do some decreases around the top, and there you go, Bob's your uncle. You have a finished mitten. If I'm perfectly honest, I could have knit the top of the mitten much neater. I made a few mistakes. The pattern is really detailed, and I think it's a good pattern. I did have a little bit of a challenge in understanding at the start of what was going on around here, but once I understood what I was doing, then it was straightforward. And then when it got to the top, there were lots of decreases that you have to do to get the shape. That's fine, but it was all written out, and my brain, I am beginning to realise struggles with lots of written instructions. So I would have preferred it charted so I could see visually what I was meant to be doing. But that's, you know, that's more me than the pattern. But I'd really like to knit these again and pay closer attention to what I was doing at the top of the mitten to see if I can get a better finish. But I am so happy with these. It's really good as a knitter, finally, to have a full size, a full length pair of mittens that I own. I've got some fingerless mittens, but this is the first pair of full length mittens that I own for myself. I knit my mum some for Christmas, but I prefer these. The half brioche makes for the most beautiful, stretchy, warm, squishy feeling around your hands. So I would highly recommend this pattern if you're interested in making a pair of mittens. They'd make really good presents actually. The pattern comes in 3 sizes. I knit the medium size. Yeah, I think I've got fairly standard size hands. I don't think I measured my hands before I started knitting. I just automatically assumed that I would need the middle size. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Right. So those are all the patterns all the projects that I said I would be working on from my last video. I have got one more project that I cast on last weekend actually, I think it was. Oh, I just had a drink of water. Right. New pattern. So I follow someone on Instagram called Laurel Knits, I think that's her name. Her feed is full of the most beautiful socks, and I am greatly inspired by the socks that she makes, and I've longed for a while to make some socks like this that I've seen on her feed, or a version of. And so in my quest to use up my stash, or to knit significantly from stash this year, I pulled out a bunch of mini skeins and a contrast yarn, and I have cast on a new pair of socks. Now, the yarn I'm using predominantly is an old Mr. B bunch of minis. Their logo and ball bands have changed in the last couple of years, so you can tell how old this is. But I am using a set of Great Outdoors minis, and this is what they look like. Oh, I love those. I love those so much. That actually is fairly similar to the yarn I'm using on my Litmus Cowl. So I'm holding, see if I can do this with one hand, the minis together with a cream, and I will show you the sock that I am working on. Oh, doesn't that look lovely? So this is a top down sock, cuff down sock, cast on 1 by 1 rib, cast on 60 stitches, 1 by 1 rib, and then I am colour blocking with 3 rows of the cream in between each colour. The way I worked out how big each colour block would be was I took the number of stitches that rounds that I usually make to knit a foot up to the toe, from heel to toe, start to toe, you know what I mean, and divided that so I got a whole number. So I am currently knitting my foot. So I'm going to knit heel flap and gusset with these. So from the end of the heel turn to the start of the toe, I'm currently knitting about 68 rounds. So I managed to work out that if I divide that by 4, I would need blocks of 17 rounds of colour. So I'm doing 14 rounds of the colour and 3 rounds of the cream. Oh, they look, I can't wait to get these on my feet. I'm just about starting the heel flap with the cream, and I'm also going to knit the toe in the cream. So I've knit let me show you the ones that I've knit. So I knit that one first, then this paler green speckle, that one, and then this is more of a grey speckle. And then once I've done the heel flap and heel turn, I will start knitting with this lovely sort of spring green colour. And I will continue. Once I've done that one, then I'll go back to that and work them in sequence. So I will finish on the foot, I will finish with that colour, so that one won't get to run out again. That's okay, we can use it for something else. Oh, excuse me, I've got a runny nose. Yeah, so knitting these on wooden Chalgu DPNs and cast on 60 stitches. As usual, I am doing, well actually no, not as usual, I'm doing a combination of clasp, weft, join to deal with the ends, and sometimes I'm doing a weaving in as you go, a bit like the weaving Stephen method, where you weave in each end of yarn as you go. I don't know why I'm doing that, I'm just doing what I feel like, to be honest, without giving it much thought. So yeah, sock 1 is well on the way. What I normally do, although I didn't do it with the last pair of socks, is to knit my socks concurrently on two different sets of needles. And I assumed I was going to do that with this pair, but for whatever reason I haven't. What I might do is, once I've done the heel flap and heel turn, is put these to one side and knit the leg on the other one. I think that's probably what I'll do. Anyway, I'm having great fun with that. Like my Litmus Cowl, I just leave those lying around and they're very easy to pick up and sit down for 5 minutes when I've got a little bit of spare time. So yeah, having a lot of fun with those. Okay. The other thing that I said I would be working on was a swatch for a Cumulus blouse by Petite Knit. I haven't had the time to do that at all, and maybe that's a good thing, because I'm not 100% convinced that the yarn I was going to choose, which was an alpaca from Isabell, is going to be the right fabric for that job. However, I still really want that style of garment, and as it happens, a couple of days ago I was looking through for inspiration and I came across the Cumulus Tee, which appears to be simply a short sleeve version of the Cumulus blouse. I'll pop 2 pictures up here so you can see the difference. I'm assuming that because they're 2 separate paid for patterns, there is something more to it than that. I already have the Cumulus blouse in my library, so I think I'll buy the Cumulus Tee and have a look. The Cumulus blouse uses two strands of a mohair held together, and the Cumulus Tee uses, the recommended yarn is 100% silk from Knitting for Olive. I'm not going to do that, but I have seen a Knitting for Olive cotton merino, which I'm quite interested in, so I'm going to investigate that over the next couple of weeks, and then maybe that will be the next thing that I cast on. I will see. I'm thinking, because it's something I want to wear for summer, so I'm thinking that the yarn choice, the cotton merino, would be more appropriate than an alpaca. Anyway, so I didn't do my yarn swatch, and I'm quite glad that I didn't in the end. So my plans for the next couple of weeks then are to work on that thought process and maybe get some yarn to try out. I'm going to work on my Birdstreet Yarn socks, and I'm going to work on my Litmus Cowl. I'm going to have those lying around. I have to say, I feel a little bit sort of at sea at the moment because I don't have a garment on my needles. I have literally just got those socks and the Litmus Cowl that I want to work on. I have a couple of projects that are on the back burner at the moment. My Bits and Bobs blanket and my Marling Festival wrap shawl that I showed you a couple of episodes ago. I'm keeping those on the back burner simply because they are very much winter projects, and I am not feeling the need or the desire to work on those just at the moment. But they will come out again probably September, October time, ready for the winter season. So, sort out my next garment, get on with my Litmus Cowl and my socks, and I have treated myself to something new. I had a bit of an itch that needed scratching, and I have started scratching it. That's not a very nice picture, is it? So this week, I can't remember who I was watching, but I've wanted to do some embroidery for quite a while, and I saw a picture somewhere on someone's Instagram feed of some really beautiful embroidery, modern embroidery, and it really caught my eye, and I went and had a look on Etsy, etc, etc, and I have bought myself a kit from Boho Craft Studio. Let me show you their details. Not sure you'll see that. That's, oh, there you go. Boho Craft Studio. And I have chosen to have a go at this pattern. So some houseplants hanging. We like houseplants in our house. So I bought this kit on Etsy and it arrived within a couple of days, so really good service. And I went for the full kit. I have got quite a lot of embroidery threads, but that's the sort of thing that holds me back. It stops me from getting on with a project if I don't have everything given to me, in a sense. So went for the full kit. It cost me around about £12, and what I got was a hoop, the instructions, a printed cloth. You probably won't see that very clearly. So a printed cloth and all the threads and some needles. And I think I'm going to start that this week. Maybe I'll even start that today. It's just nice to have something slightly different to do. Knitting is my craft of choice, and obviously my sewing for my shop. I don't really sew for leisure or pleasure. No, I do sew for pleasure. That's totally wrong. You know what I mean. I don't sew as a hobby. So it'd be nice to have something different to do. And again, I feel like the simple projects like the sock and the Litmus Cowl, this will be something that I can pick up for a few minutes each day, do a little bit and put it down again. So I'm very much looking forward to doing that. I'll leave links to Boho Craft Studio in the description box. Oh, the other thing you get is this stitch guide. And it's just a little booklet with details of all the stitches that you need to do. She has loads of really interesting looking patterns, so I'm going to see how I get on with that, and then maybe pick up another one or two or three, see how I enjoy it. So that's my plan for the next couple of weeks. Just reasonably quickly, some book talk. So this couple of weeks I have finished listening to The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry by Rachel Joyce. Oh my goodness, what a marvellous book. What a book. I really enjoyed it. I laughed out loud to it while I was out on my walks, and I finished it this week almost sobbing into my dinner. Oh my goodness me. it starts off in a very sort of light-hearted, irreverent sort of way. Harold goes out for a walk and decides to keep on walking for a particular reason, and he meets some characters on the way, and he's a bit of a funny character himself. And then sort of 3/4 of the way through, Harold's character really takes a different sort of turn, and he begins to understand some things about his life, and oh my goodness me, it really affected me. I found it very moving, and it was just a wonderful book, and I enjoyed it so much that I picked up a copy for my lovely mother for Mother's Day. So this is my mum's Mother's Day present. Next weekend in the UK, I'll be going up to see her, and I'll give her a copy of that because I think she'll really enjoy it. One of the things that I particularly, well not particularly, but one of the things I quite like it when you read a book and you know places where they're talking about. So a couple of the sort of big events in the book happen in places that I know very well, or a handful of places actually. So yeah, really good book. I could not recommend this more. I listened to it on Audible. It was narrated by Jim Broadbent, who is brilliant, and I have recently discovered that it's also going to be the subject of a film that comes out at the end of April, so I will most definitely be watching that. And it has Jim Broadbent playing Harold, which is just perfect. And Maureen, his wife, who I love Maureen. Maureen is played by Penelope Wilton, who I love also, so it's going to be brilliant. So I finished that. I started listening to All the Broken Places, which is a book by John Boyne. If you remember, I finished listening to The Heart's Invisible Furies fairly recently. Love that, and some of you recommended All the Broken Places as another John Boyne book. So I've literally only just started listening to that. I can't remember who's narrating it, but it's the sequel to The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, which I'm sure many of you will know. I also finished reading, I don't have it here with me, but I finished reading the book that I shared with you last time, In Your Defence, which was a book written by a barrister about some of her cases in the family and criminal courts. It was okay. It was, I found it interesting. I found the behind the scenes work, the behind the scenes element of it quite fascinating actually. She took you behind as I've said, behind the scenes of her work as a barrister. Yeah, it was interesting. I'd say if you've got an interest in that sort of world, then it's an interesting book to read. I'm not raving about it, as you can tell. It was fine. But yeah, so that's what's on my reading list at the moment. I don't think I have any other books to tell you about. Finally, I had my shop update last week. Thank you so much if you popped by the shop, if you bought something, and if you've given me a huge amount of work for the next few weeks. It went so well, thank you ever so much. I shared all the bags that went into the shop update last time I recorded. I won't show you again. What I will say is that there are still plenty of made to order bags available. If you are interested in having a look, then my website is in the description box underneath the video. Anything that has made to order being shown as sold out, I will be topping up the slots available for that over the next handful of weeks, just once I've got my sort of making will what my processing time is so I can update the website. But yeah, it went so well, thank you ever so much. And I will have a new fabric coming out into the shop maybe in about a month's time, a month to 6 weeks, and I'll fill you in on the details nearer the time. Do I have anything else to tell you? I don't think so. I'm just trying to think if I've missed anything out, but I don't think I have. So I will leave you there. Thank you ever so much if you have stayed to the end. Leave me a comment and let me know what you're working on. If you've got a toe up sock bind off that you go to time after time, then let me know that. I'd love to know. And if you have got a clever method of grafting a cast on edge to a bunch of live stitches at the other end, I'd really like to know that as well. So lots of homework, people. Anyway, I will be back in a couple of weeks. I hope you have a lovely crafty 2 weeks too, and I will see you very soon. Thank you ever so much. Goodbye.